What the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. So that's kind of our little saying.
In April of 2002, we had our first child, Sophia. And we were really excited, obviously, being parents for the first time. During the last trimester, Megan had an ultrasound, and it showed that something had went wrong. The initial diagnosis for Sophia was that she had cortical vision impairment, hydrocephalus, and brain injury, more commonly known as cerebral palsy. We're really concerned about, what life would be for her with such a profound brain injury. After we recovered from the shock, we just went to work figuring out what our plan of action was going to be. So being a pediatric occupational therapist and her mother a pediatric physical therapist, we decided that instead of just using a traditional Western allopathic mode of treatment, that we really wanted to go full on with an integrative mode of treatment, because there's no pill you can take to fix a brain injury. I had heard and read some research studies about hyperbaric oxygen therapy being used with non-healing wounds. And I'd also read some studies about people post-stroke using hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and got really interested in potentially pursuing this as a mode of treatment.
Major applications of hyperbaric are things like stroke, cerebral palsy, brain injury, anoxia, blue baby. It's a known treatment for MS in England. A neural, immune system, lymph system, detox, gut and stool function. It's kind of a phenomenon across the board. If the area of the body needs improvement, it'll improve. If it doesn't, it'll stay the same. You're changing the partial pressure of oxygen so that you're diluting more oxygen into fluids and tissues that normally don't carry oxygen, which can be very beneficial for the cells in the body and can be very not beneficial for viruses, bacteria, and cancers. Creating that state in the body is quite profound.
We bought a hyperbaric chamber when Sophia turned 1 year old from a company by the name of Oxy Health. She wasn't old enough to get into the chamber by herself, and her mom did a lot of the other therapies, and so it was my job to actually be Sophia's hyperbaric partner for about 10 years.
My dad would read to me a lot, and we would just sit there and laugh about funny stories, and we would call certain friends and family.
Like I would try to lift her up with my feet or something, but she never really, I'm pretty rambunctious, but Sophia was never.
Not into that. I think using the chamber kind of relaxed me. I remember that I felt like I could learn better the next day. It was neat to see.
So a lot of our father-daughter time was spent inside that chamber, and I'm glad we did it. It played a role into the new neuronal pathways which she grew. As parents, our job was to set the foundation with nutrition, with oxygenation of the brain. Part of our job was to do therapy, to do books, to do reading, to do learning, to do a brain food diet, to have the right balance of omega-3s, 6s, and 9s, to have antioxidant foods, to use natural, clean foods, and then to just spend a lot of time inside the hyperbaric chamber so that the brain could do the job that it wants to do. The brain wants to engage in neuronal regeneration.
It's extremely stackable. In other words, usually when it's combined with other primary therapies, then you'll get a better effect from your primary therapy. The patients will be able to start moving in an area or start functioning in an area. It's this repeated exposure to hyperbaric oxygen that causes this phenomenon to occur. The other phenomenon that occurs is angiogenesis, creating new blood flow into the area. You see like stroke patients with the left side of their body that was paralyzed. We put them into a chamber, and sometimes they'd be able to wiggle their toes or their fingers on the parallel side. It's pretty wild.
Over about a 10-year period, we took over 1,000 dives, and Sophia had this amazing amount of brain growth. Her vision has improved dramatically. She can see well enough to no longer have that label of legal blindness is huge.
I remember that it felt exciting being able to know that I could walk independently at 7 years old, that I was able to explore a lot more, explore my surroundings and environment. So everyone kind of thought that I was going to be in special ed, kind of, behind everyone else. But the summer that I was going into 5th grade is when I did the reading program and learned how to read. At the end of the summer, it showed that I was in 8th grade level of comprehension and 6th grade level of reading. My favorite subjects are social studies and language arts. I do really well in social studies. But science, I've noticed for me in science this year, you have to comprehend a lot more, so I'm having to work a lot harder and go to certain study sessions.
You can do hyperbarics every day, all day, but if you're not eating well, if you're not hydrating well, if you're not leading a clean lifestyle with regard to nutrition, then you're probably only going to see minimal impact by any technology. And it's those tiny bits of progress. It's those tiny bits of efforts that you engage on a program, and you do it 6-7 days a week. It's not the path of least resistance. It's not the path for people who are lazy. But I can tell you, after 14 years, when I turn around in the rearview mirror and look at the results of what these efforts became, I'm looking at her across the room here, and I'm just a proud father of a 14-year-old girl who is not in a special education classroom. She has a walker. She walks independently in our home. She has cortical vision impairment, but she is no longer classified as being legally blind. She had some seizures early on when she was small, but knock on wood, in the last decade, she hasn't had a single seizure that we're aware of. She's a bright, young, smart girl who's going into her teen years with, the typical nuances of teen life and her wants and, I believe that the science behind mild hyperbarics and hyperbaric oxygen therapy in general is solid. Evidence is mounting and growing that this potential, this possibility for neuronal regeneration, for brain growth, is possible for everyone. Every morning before you go to school, I say what the mind can conceive and
believe it can achieve. And I think I've executed that very well.
I agree.